An amazing day two of action here at the Australian Open, particularly for the Aussies, but there were some shock results among the international players, not least of which Stefanos Tsitsipas, who's bundled out in 4 sets in the first round. John Huvenar's here on the spotlight with me. Xavier Muhlerbach.
Hello.
Welcome for your debut on the
Yeah, never been on before. It's a bit of fun.
Simon Ray's back from the gig team. Hello, Simon.
Hi, John. Hi, Xav. Good to be with you.
And former player, now commentator, Chanda Rubin. Welcome, Chanda.
Happy. This is my first official obligation gig enjoyment here in Down Under, so I'm looking forward to it.
Obligation's a strong word.
It
Should we
is.
unpack that for a bit?
Obligation. I couldn't think of one, but it's. I get to be here.
It's a
and
privilege.
I love it.
It absolutely is.
And
so
it's our
loving
pleasure
it.
to have you.
Thank you.
So a lot of big seeds have fallen today. We didn't have many yesterday. I think Linda Noskova was the biggest at 29 in the women's. Let's start, though, with Tsitsipas, who's been bundled out by a compatriot of yours by the name of Alex Michelsen in 4 sets, 7-5, 6-3, 2-6, 6-4, and by golly gosh, Michelsen has a game on him.
He does. He's a big hitter, and just 20 years of age. He's learning literally on the job in real time. He's got the big serve. He's got the weapons from the ground. And I think against Tsitsipas, it was the matchup that helped him, his ability to go down the line with the backhand and really expose that area, open that area up against Tsitsipas was huge. And he knew going into this match, playing against a top seed, that he had to go after it. And sometimes knowing that frees you up as a player, especially a young player. You know you have no other choice if you want to have a shot to win, and he handled the moment beautifully.
Tsitsipas hasn't gone out this early at the Australian Open since 2019. This has been a happy hunting ground for him. What went wrong today, Simon?
Yeah, well, Chanda makes a great point about the matchup. It's now 2-0 in Michelsen's favour. So we saw Michelsen get over the top of Tsitsipas in Tokyo at the back end of the 2024 season, and we saw it again today. And I think, and Chanda makes a great point as well about the dominance of the Michelsen backhand, but I want to identify what I think was a tactical mistake from the Tsitsipas camp. So we know Tsitsipas, he wants to find his forehand at all costs, and it starts on the return of serve. So what we see from him today, quite unusually, we don't typically see it, not to this extent, on the second serve return on the juice side in particular, so not so much the ad side where he's not prepared to give up as much width and depth. He goes way back, 5 and 6 metres behind the baseline.
That's
And
Medvedev territory.
What he does, when you give up that type of territory against someone like Alex Michelsen with the type of backhand that he's got, is you allow Alex Michelsen to then have ascendancy in the point. And he dominates thereafter. So what it then turns into, and Chanda mentioned the backhand, is this backhand exchange. And I ran some numbers on the backhand side. So Michelsen's winners versus errors ratio just off the backhand wing in this match, of the total number of backhands he hit, 15% were winners, 11% were errors. When you flip that script, Tsitsipas's backhand side, which has always been the hole, we know about that. That's where opponents try to get to. It's not so easy to do, but that's what they're all trying to achieve. 4% winners off the backhand side, 17% errors.
Wow.
So I think a lot of this traces back to serve and return. And his decision to go so far back on second serve return in looking for his forehand, there's a trade-off there. There's a price you pay. And Michelsen was able to make him pay that price.
Talk me through the last couple of years. So I was actually standing next to our tournament director, Craig Tiley, 2023 men's final. Tsitsipas was there. The crowd was loving him. It was an epic night.
Yeah.
Since then, how are we now talking about a first round loss? What has anything changed in that 2-year period, or are we talking just little tweaks in the last few months?
Well, I think there's been some substantial change in the Tsitsipas camp. So we know the relationship clearly that he's had with his father from the coaching perspective. That's now shifted. And I think the gains or the margins here are so fine that it doesn't take you being a long way off your game as an elite athlete. Alex Michelsen's a coming star in the game. So if you are a little bit off, and I think we've spoken about a couple of the areas where in this particular matchup there's the potential for Tsitsipas to get exposed, then you pay the price. And I think, just to double down on the point I made before, I don't know what Tsitsipas was doing going so far back on second serve return, because he wants the points short. When the points were short in this match, 0-4 shots, he wins 82, Michelsen wins 71. When the points start to lengthen, the script totally flips. So 5-8 shots, 37 rallies won for Michelsen, 24 for Tsitsipas.
Yeah.
9 plus, it comes out in the wash, 14-12. So if you want short points, don't go back 5 and 6 metres behind the baseline on second serve
So
return.
what's going? Because the data you're looking at, coaches, they have that in hand.
Yeah. Well, clearly it was a plan going in. So, and I think Chanda's identifying what it is. He's looking for his forehand there on second serve return. So to get that, you need time. But the trade-off in creating time is you're giving up space. And my hypothesis, anyway, or what I'm putting forward to the panel tonight, is that it didn't work in his favour on this occasion. So next time, and it won't be at the 2025 AO, look for a change on second serve return from Tsitsipas in that matchup.
It's 2 wins in a row now in this matchup for Alex Mickelson. Big things to come from him. Well, another upset Chanda on day 2 happened in the women's draw. And Jelena Ostapenko, who tends to do a lot of damage around these parts in January, is out of the competition. Belinda Bencic strikes 6-3, 7-6.
I think we've been looking to see when Belinda Bencic would make some moves after coming back from maternity leave. And I saw her play a bit at the end of the season and also to start this year. And she has that type of game that can handle pace, that can handle big hitting. And that's what Ostapenko serves up. I mean, she's looking to hit big and bigger. And the redirect from Bencic, she's been playing more confidently, getting the fitness side of things back, and you could see that coming. And I think that came into play in a big way against Ostapenko. And remember, this matchup between these two, they go way back into junior days. And so I think, again, you look at matchups on these courts, first round coming in, you're not quite as confident. Ostapenko maybe not as many wins coming into this year's AO as she might have liked. And against an opponent who can redirect the way Bencic can, who can return and take the ball a little bit earlier, that was the perfect counter to the pace of Jelena Ostapenko. And I also was impressed with how well Bencic handled the moment. That's always what you kind of wonder with a player coming back who was off for so many months, off tour. But she handled the moment well, defending when Ostapenko saved match points. She kind of kept her poise, saved a couple of set points herself into that tiebreak. And so I think handling the moment, handling the pressure, I mean, we're seeing Belinda Bencic coming back in real time, and it's a fantastic win for her and against a player who she matches up well against.
And she had some really cute photos when she was at the United Cup, I believe it when she was playing in Sydney. Her daughter was on court with her, little kiss on the side of court. I just love watching the outside of the match play, players seeing their real selves, their family, their friends. Yeah. Follow them on social. It's where you want to look at them.
Deeper than the surface level.
Yeah, definitely.
Seeing that type of insight.
And I reckon there's some real insight you can get from a player on their social media. If you really think about it, you can go, okay, they're out having a big night and I'm playing them tomorrow. This is going to be good. Oh, they've got a new baby. They're going to be tired. This is going to be good. Oh, they've got a new coach and they're doing an ice bath. I'm in trouble. I need to get myself one of those. So, yeah, look a little deeper, folks. You heard it here first.
A perennial fan favourite. So how did she, Chanda used the word redirect, but how did she absorb some of that power game coming?
I think, first of all, as well, in the preparation phase that leads to getting here today on the opening Monday of the opening week of the 2025 Australian Open. So Belinda Bencic goes and is a part of the Swiss team at the United Cup, then goes to Adelaide, has to come through qualifying, manages to do that, picks up another couple of matches, couple of tough matches, gets a retirement over Kalinskaya, but goes 3 sets with Samsonova in Adelaide. So it's time on court, it's building, it's the type of preparation you want to see. And then today, and Chanda mentioned it and makes a great point, if you have a poor serving day against Belinda Bencic, she is going to come after you on second serve return. There's not many players in the world that return more aggressively than Belinda Bencic. Well, unfortunately for Ostapenko, she had a poor serving day. She serves at 52% today in terms of first serves in play. She wins just 34% of her second serve points. And that's the Bencic pressure. That's what she does to you. She will not hold back on second serve return, and she will keep coming after you no matter what. And then it turned into a little bit of a battle of the forehands, and it was the hole for Ostapenko today from the back of the court was on forehand side. Of the 79 forehands she hit, 22 were errors. That's a 28% error rate on the forehand side. Belinda Bencic, by contrast, 13% error rate on forehand side. So those are a couple of things. You have a poor serving day, you cough up too many errors on forehand side, you're in trouble against an athlete the caliber of Belinda Bencic.
Yeah, I think, when you look at Bencic, and I think, she's still building. I think in terms of the instinctiveness of her game and the movement and some of those things, you've got to have live match play to really get to a high level. I think she's still building in that area, but she still has such a high tennis IQ, and she understands where to position herself on the court, what the likely reply is going to be from a player who is kind of playing one way in Ostapenko. You know, she's just hitting the ball, and it's not as thoughtful at times, especially when she's not as confident. So I think it was, in terms of the matchup, a little bit of a mismatch down the stretch in that sense, even though it was a very tight second set. But this, I think, played right into Bencic's hands, and she was ready for the moment. And we talk about her personal life and being happy off court and being a new mom, which she's coming back incredibly quick as well. It's phenomenal to see, but a lot of that takes the pressure off and just allows you to handle those moments that Belinda Bencic handled so beautifully today in that upset.
Turning the spotlight to day 3 now, a couple of really interesting matchups to look at. Firstly, with the men, Simon, Australia's number 1, Alex de Minaur, has a tricky first up encounter, Botic van der Zandschulp, the Dutchman who took down Rafael Nadal at the Davis Cup finals.
Yeah, and these guys have played before too. You have to go back a few years, but you're back in the 2022 Davis Cup campaign, I think they met. And it was a tight 3-setter between de Minaur and van der Zandschulp on that occasion. So it's a dangerous matchup. Van der Zandschulp, the last couple of seasons, not as successful from his perspective as when he was at his career high from a rankings perspective. He's got a big forehand, can do a lot of damage with the forehand, uses the slice backhand more than we would see from most players. So there's a couple of different things or a couple of elements of danger there for Demon. But I think we're all waiting, certainly those of us down under are all waiting with bated breath. I think we've all got an asterisk on Alex, and we're all just wanting to see him have a good hit out, a solid hit out, perhaps be challenged, but not to the point where our palms are too sweaty. We'd like him to get through with a degree of comfort and build his momentum across the fortnight. That's what we're all hoping for. From
Are we
Australian
geeing it up a bit, though? Does he really have a lot to worry about, or just be cautious?
Well,
should he be optimistic? Talk me through it.
I think it's probably somewhere in the middle. So
Okay.
certainly if you're in the camp, you're always on red alert. And as an
I don't mean
athlete,
be
you can
complacent.
never afford not to be.
Oh, come on.
Is it
Demon.
is it a realistic threat? Yeah, look, I think on paper, sure. Yep, he's a red-hot favourite.
Yeah.
But, you've got to go and play the game. That's why they don't just send you through to the second round, because it's not done on
Love
paper.
it. That's why he gets on
I
the
know.
podcast all the time.
He's an expert.
This is why it's my first and last.
Chanda,
I'm just here for the fun. This is great.
confidence in the body. Alex spoke about getting the legs back at United Cup. He finally feels like all his weapons are back. How important would that be for a player knowing that he's at 100% going into his home slam?
Yeah, I think it's huge. I mean, when you go into a major, there's a different kind of nervousness, even if you aren't the nervous type. You know, there's just that little bit of tension that comes into play. These are the big events you want to do well at. So those are the intangibles you're dealing with as a player. And then you add to it, this is your home major. Yeah. And it's just huge. So in terms of how your body reacts and how you go out there and play, there's sometimes things you can't explain. Even though you see a player and you go, I mean, he should be beating this guy hands down. It's not going to be the case. There's an equalizer that occurs at these events, especially in the first round. And Van der Zandschulp, he's a dangerous guy. I mean, he's 22 in the world at his high. That was a couple of years ago. He has this ability to match up and play big-time tennis against, top players, against top tenors. He's gotten a couple of wins, significant wins over top 10 players, the last, couple of seasons ago. And he always is an unknown quantity in that sense, if he can put it together mentally. That being said, I think de Minaur, from a mental standpoint, is just the more solid player. He's got a much better vein and history of winning tough matches and big matches under pressure. I think that's going to come into play. And if it does get into that zone, you got to favor de Minaur all day long. That's if Van der Zandschulp can keep it close. He's a good athlete, Van der Zandschulp. He has that ability to play in the different areas of the court. He's going to have to bring that type of game. But with that being said, I think de Minaur, with his movement, with his ability to come forward, take some chances, take some risk, he's such a smart player around the court, de Minaur. And I think that's going to come into play, and it's going to be too much for Van der Zandschulp to handle overall. But, we'll see when you toss the balls up. That's kind of the fun of it. And I think de Minaur is going to accept that challenge. And that's the first important part of it, is to not shy away from it.
I think tomorrow night, one of the real tests for Van der Zandschulp is going to be the Aussie fans.
Yeah.
How's he going to cope when there are 14,000 plus Aussies screaming for Demon?
Yeah.
And he's maybe have a little contingent.
Well,
with
but
some
remember,
flags.
at Davis Cup against Nadal, there was nobody wanting him to win. And he came and just was
ruined the
ice cold.
party. Well,
there
He
we go.
ruined
Ice
people's
cold, love it, the
lives.
ice
He
man.
was ice cold.
Got
Like,
some recent practice, doesn't
yeah,
he?
and so
This might be his little his
I think
secret
he's
weapon.
actually better in those situations than
Love
when
it.
he's expected to win.
Good.
So, that could be interesting. I still think Minaur is going to have what it takes, but it could be interesting.
I mean, Aussies love an underdog, but we also love an Aussie.
Yeah.
So
we
how
love an
about
Aussie
just
more tomorrow
5 gripping sets? And
I
then
like
we'll,
it.
we'll see what happens. At
Maybe
the end.
4.
Yeah, mate,
Okay.
I think
I'll
so.
take 4.
For the
You're probably
Aussies.
calling the game.
For the Aussies.
You probably just
You
want
don't
an
want
early
more
night.
than 4.
Finally, Simon, I know you're a huge raps on this next lady, Emma Navarro, the 8th seed.
Yeah.
It's only her second Australian Open, would you believe? And tomorrow she comes up against another American in Peyton Stearns. We'll get Chanda's thoughts shortly, but tell us about what Navarro can deliver on the big stage tomorrow.
Well, I've been so impressed by Navarro across 2024 and all that I've seen her bring to the court, and obviously had an injury-interrupted end to her campaign in 2024. And I think it's fair to say been a little bit slow off the mark so far in 2025. So Chanda mentioned, the momentum that you can generate leading into the Australian Open, and Belinda Bencic is a great case in point, a great example. For Emma Navarro, it's been a bit different. So I think perhaps this matchup, it's a dangerous matchup because Peyton Stearns is a player that's coming in with matches under the belt, with momentum, playing some of the better tennis that we've seen from her in recent times. But this matchup, the fact that the head-to-head is 4-1 in Navarro's favour, perhaps comes at the right time, because I think it's important for Navarro. She's not coming in with a full head of steam up. A win or two through the early rounds here is certainly going to be helpful, and it's badly needed for her to, I think, find her best tennis, say come round 3, round 4, if she wants to push into the second week.
Yeah, I think it's always an interesting matchup between two players from the same country. First round of a major, you come all this way, and you're playing somebody you could have played at home. You could have played stateside. So I think there is that dynamic. I think with Emma Navarro, she's had such an incredible 2024. And there's always just that little bit of, getting comfortable, getting used to that space. As impressive as Navarro has been, you figure that's going to come into play a little and see how this sophomore season at the top of the game is for her. And maybe that's just part of the slow start she's had this year. And by slow, a couple of losses compared to what she was doing last year.
Kind of handling a different kind of expectation.
Yeah, I think
that's a great
that
point.
absolutely comes into play. So we'll see how she handles that. I think for Peyton Stearns, there's literally it's all upside for her to come out in this match and play her best tennis. She's an athletic player. She has that ability to hit with spin, to hit with margin. How does that come into play on this surface? I can't remember all of the times they played, the surfaces that they played on.
Yeah, a bunch are on clay.
In the past. Yeah. So that could come into play a little bit, just the surface and Stearns being maybe a little more comfortable with how she produces her shots. But I still think Navarro is such a smart player, and she doesn't get overly phased by a lot. And I think that should help her in this type of matchup where, you're playing against an opponent you are familiar with. You're playing against an opponent you've had multiple wins against. You know what you need to do, and it's just about executing. So I think that absolutely is going to be in Navarro's favor, along with, the momentum she did gain last year, although this could be a tougher match than maybe we expect.
Yeah, and I think Chanda makes a great point. The danger element for me in this match is the Stearns forehand. She can make some errors off that side, but she's going to be hitting the ball, based on what we've seen from them down under in recent times, she's going to be hitting the ball 10 kilometres an hour bigger off the forehand wing than Emma
That's
Navarro,
significant.
and with more spin. So it's a dangerous shot. If she gets up and rolling, and Emma Navarro's had a little interrupted start to her 25 campaign, then there could be some danger signs for the seeded player tomorrow.
Well, plenty to look forward to on a blockbuster day 3 of competition. The All-American affair, and Alex de Minaur against the Dutchman, two of my favourites on the tour. Well, to listen to this episode...
Whoa.
What do you got?
Do we just talk about tennis on the show?
Yeah.
There's all sorts of stuff happening out there.
Go for it.
Well, I mean, I don't get to see it all because I'm working the whole time.
But
But
last night, I said,
Yeah,
"When's
you go-
Bree going to bring us some colour from around the
yeah.
precinct?"
Well, you got to have a look. I mean, jump on Oz Open Social and the YouTube. There's heaps on there. We've got the Blue Zone that's happening live. But
Yes.
really, you go out there for a wander, and every
Packed
day,
out there today.
I mean, you can probably tell if you're watching on YouTube, I have something different for lunch every day, and I have not doubled up in the years that I've been here. It is awesome, and I'm not just G'ing it up. I don't get paid a commission or a bonus. Like there's fried things, like we were talking about the Louisiana delicacies. I'm sure you can find a po' boy down there. We've
they have
got
po' boys?
shawarmas. Yeah, well, it's a chicken sub, but we
Top
could
court.
we could try and slide on through.
Okay, well, We'll give it that.
You could fix them.
Yeah.
We'll be right.
Yeah.
And then there's all sorts of drinks. There's music. There's stuff for kids, stuff for old people. Bring them all. But I know not everyone can come to the AO, but tell the people, John.
Yeah, no, you've
got this
successfully
platform,
hijacked the
Yeah,
tennis
I will
spotlight.
hijack. Yeah. For those who don't know, John actually works for me, but he knows a lot more about tennis than I do. Hence why he gets to steer this ship. I just get to fill in every now and then, hang out with celebrities.
Until the very end, when the boss took over.
And then I was like, you know what? I have something to say. I have not thought about it. I have not planned it, but I will say it. I should really be a
I love
politician.
this.
been fun.
I mean, this is my first, real sit down,
Yeah.
and I'm starting strong. This
Yeah.
is awesome.
Oh, yeah. I'm
Yeah.
taking notes. Like,
Yeah.
oh, Chanda, teach me.
I hope everyone's enjoyed the Xavier Muhlerbach experience. Chanda, Rubin, your insights impeccable as always.
Thank you.
Simon, we look forward to seeing you back on the show tomorrow.
Thanks for having us, team.
All right, if you'd like to hear this episode in full, just head over to your favourite podcast app and search for The Tennis. You can find this episode and all previous episodes, and be sure to hit the subscribe button below to never miss an episode of The Tennis. We'll see you tomorrow.